Today, we're embarking on a new journey into the Native American survival techniques. Their ancient ways are the ultimate way of life, so if you're ever expecting to find yourself out there on your own, with nothing and no one to help you stay alive, they're the best people out there to learn from. It's not just that they were skilled in basic hunting, food preservation, tracking, and all of the practical skills. It's the world that they lived in that made them the most skilled and unique survivalists in history. You see, ancient America was a dangerous place, and no, we don't mean because of bears and wolves. We're talking about the people, too. No one knows better how to prevail under the threat of human pressure than the indigenous Americans. Thousands of years before the Europeans touched down, tribes fought for farmland, for hunting grounds, for resources, and to avenge the sins of the past. Living off the land and surviving your neighbors next door were one and the same. So, if anyone can teach us anything about making it out there when everything shuts down and the man next to you is just as dangerous to you as the invading forces are, it's the Native Americans. Now, we need to start this off by saying that this is only the start of a much broader concept. The sheer amount of skills that we can learn from the indigenous people are absolutely colossal. So even if we're making just a compressed list this time around of some of their more useful and fascinating skills that relate to survival, don't fear. We'll be extending on each of those skills separately at a later stage. So if ever there was a time that you needed to leave your thoughts, questions, and specific requests around this particular subject, the time to do it is now. Your comments highlight our viewers' most pressing interests, and those are the subjects that we'll be covering first. Our team is here to serve you, and for that, we need to know what you want to learn about. And hey, while you're pecking it out on the keyboard anyway, why not take a second to like, subscribe, and share this video? Come on, it'll only take a second more, and it helps us out a ton. Alright, that's enough groveling for one day. Let's get back to some of those survival skills, starting with the most obvious and working our way down to the more obscure proficiencies that you might have not thought was necessary until now. Let's begin with hunting. We've become absolutely reliant on our firearms to bring down the bucks, and maybe a few of you even know how to string a trap to catch small game. But can you make a bow from scratch using sinew and select the right tree for the wood? How about a blowgun or a fishing net from natural fibers? How about a poison dart or a sling? Are you clued in enough to know that you need to dig a pitfall in the path of migrational herds? And how to mask the scent of disturbed earth so that they don't dodge your trap? Hunting is a huge field to look into. It's not just the tactics, tracking, and weapons. There's the tools needed to make the weapons too. Even if you're lucky enough to have a few knives on you when you find yourself alone in the wilderness, they won't last long if you're doing everything with them. To have them last as long as possible, you need to learn the basics of flint knapping so that you can utilize stone tools for everyday utilitarian jobs. This also goes hand in hand with various techniques that you can use to make fire if you don't have matches or a flint kit. Even making burning coals last for days by storing them properly is possible for those who are constantly on the move. There are very few civilizations in the world that were as good at feeding their people from the land as the early Americans were. And if you are able to bring down a meal, there's more to it than just hacking out a flank to spit over the fire. There's still pounds of meat that's going to be wasted if you don't know how to butcher and process it. And by that, we mean everything on the animal is useful. Hooves boiled down for glue, skins that need to be cured so they're soft and pliable, stomachs used to make leak-proof water bags, even the brains of the animal are used in the leather-making process. Working with a carcass, really utilizing every single scrap to turn it into something useful, is a highly specialized skill and, quite frankly, an art that was held in high regard among all of the native tribes. If you can properly process every part of that moose, it'll be the difference between dying this winter and making it out alive. Besides, the clothes on your back aren't gonna last for more than 2 seasons out there. You're gonna have to know how to replace your shirt, shoes, hat, and the bags you need to carry your supplies in before the year's out. And that brings us to food preservation. Yes, the most famous indigenous preserved meats like jerky and pemmican that all of us preppers are aware of will be on the docket for things to learn how to make, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. It doesn't matter if you're in the forest, the grasslands, or the desert, there will be something to eat. And when the season for growing is upon you, you need to know how to harvest as much as you can and to make it last for as long as possible. Berries, nuts, roots, maple syrup, salt, medicine, grains, mushrooms, and spices. Everything is growing wild out there already. You just need to know where to look and how to identify what's edible. Preservation of plant material is synonymous with medicinal storages. There are few places in the world so rich in medicinal plants as in the USA. Look, we could harp on about the various species and what they treat all day long, but trust us when we say everything from toothaches to stomach ulcers, constipation, epilepsy, to high blood pressure and diabetes, everything you need is already growing in your backyard. Before the Industrial Revolution, Native American populations had almost no chronic health conditions because they ate the right kinds of food, their treatments were holistic, and the solutions to their illnesses were permanent. Now we get to setting up shop for multiple people. First and foremost would be permanent shelter. Again, there's a lot more options on the table than just your standard traditional leather-bound teepee. Everything from housing for livestock during winter, larger tents to act as communal housing, earth lodges, and yes, even caves and underground options. We forget that Native Americans consisted of somewhere in the ballpark of 600 different tribes. Each lived in a different climate with varied conditions and challenges, and their living quarters reflected what they needed for their specific geographic location. A leather-bound tent will bake you like a trout in the desert sun, and a hut made from switchgrass up north, that'll freeze the clothes off your frostbitten skin before the first night is over with. Every tribe had a way to build that was unique to them and their environment, and so do you. Moving on to farming in early America. Now, it was nothing like we know homesteading to be nowadays. What, with our solar panels and sturdy fencing to keep our cattle in place? Yet the Native Americans were some of the first peoples on the planet to figure out agriculture. And we don't just mean sticking a seed into the ground and watering it. They were some of the first ones to realize that the nutrients that crops took from the soil needed to be replenished with manure. They had ingenious irrigation systems to water their plants, and on top of that, they're the first people to genetically modify plants. It's thanks to them that we have corn on the cob. A few thousand years ago, an ear of corn was about the size of your pinky, yet they figured out that through selective breeding and shaping the land to yield the most ideal conditions for food to grow, they could cultivate bigger, healthier, and more nutritious food. There isn't a group of people who understand the earth more than in the Americas. And their sophisticated mastery of the land wasn't where their expertise ended. They understood how a working society needs to function even more. To keep their societies running smoothly, no one understood the intricacies of hierarchy better than the Comanche, Sioux, the Cherokee, and all the rest. Yes, every child grew up trying his or her hand at every aspect of daily life, be that food production, farming, tool making, or weaving. Everything was tried at least once, giving them the tools that they needed to survive on their own if they ever found themselves alone. As you grew, you found the niche where you belonged, and the experts in their field were respected. Even the mightiest warrior would concede leadership over to the expert of the crop fields when the time came for everyone to help with the big harvest. Everyone had their place, and no one had the right to take over from those industries where they didn't belong. The idea of democracy was an alien concept to Europeans, Asians, and Africans until the discovery of the Americas. That's where the Founding Fathers got the idea of democracy from the Native American structures of hierarchy and personal ownership. And to this day, it is the best and most stable form of governance that's been adopted by the majority of the planet. Now, we know this is a bit of a history lesson, and that's a little out of this channel's usual realm of topics. Personally, we believe that rebuilding society from scratch is a very important conversation that most people don't realize they need to have. So if it's something that would interest you, let us know in the comments below and we'll extend on the subject in more detail in a separate video. And finally, we reach the last skill set that we'd like to take a little look into: defense. Like we mentioned before, the hundreds of tribes fought each other just like every other nation on Earth has. And again, there was more to it than shooting a bow and running at someone with a blade. Runners and nimble climbers in wooded areas fought a lot like the expert jungle fighters of Vietnam. Bowmen were wicked accurate, and so were the spear wielders. Hand-to-hand combat and booby-trapped fields, they did it all. And when we say that they were good, you don't even know the half of it. The Europeans, even with their guns, would have lost the attempt to colonize the continent. They just got lucky with the foreign diseases that they brought over. 90% of the native population were wiped out by influenza, measles, and smallpox in those first years. 90%! And the Europeans still had trouble getting the upper hand during those first few decades. The 10% that were left weren't just expert fighters and masters of tactical warfare, they were damn adaptable too. Less than a decade after the new arrivals, the natives were already better horseback riders than the Europeans who had domesticated the animals in the first place. Seriously, the native population were some of the most feared fighters that this planet has ever produced. These 8 topics of conversation are just scratching the surface. Native American culture, skills, and way of life are second to none. Just about every aspect of their lives are imbibed with vital skills and lessons that will serve you in a survival situation, and we're going to cover them all. So strap in and get ready for a fresh new look into all of the expertise that the world's most proficient survivors have to teach you. And don't forget to let us know which of these topics interest you the most down below. Until next time, this is Threat to Survival. Prepare today, thrive tomorrow. Embrace the threat to survival.